You see, I always felt that we had to work with an all-physical person. We always worked from the full person. At least I did, and I know that all of us tried to work that way because that's the only honest way to do it. You have to have a person who lives and breathes and walks and is alive rather than just turning on a voice. Because you could conjure up, if you really had, through imagination, anything that you wanted to be. That's why I loved it, too, because I could play opposite Jimmy Stewart or Frederick March or Cary Grant or Gary Cooper or Leslie Howard. And on the air, I could be the most glamorous, gorgeous, tall, black-haired female you've ever seen in your life. Whatever I wished to be, I could be with my voice. That was the thrilling part to me.
Halloween night in Los Angeles was relatively quiet. Police reported only 20 cases of broken windows, attributed to teenagers and not trick-or-treaters. Meanwhile, on the air, NBC and CBS's network dominance was being broken into by the American Broadcasting Company. ABC had found gold in Stop the Music, their hour-long 8 p.m. musical game show. It was inexpensive and multi-sponsored.
Your attention, America! Do you hear the beat of the clock? Before the next hour is up, any minute, any second, you may be richer by thousands of dollars in prizes. Because right now, from coast to coast, it's time to play Stop the Music. Harry Solver and the orchestra, the songs of Kay Armand and Dick Brown.
The first half of Stop the Music aired opposite Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy on NBC. Meanwhile, on CBS, The Adventures of Sam Spade took to the air from Hollywood.
The Adventures of Sam Spade, Detective. Brought to you by Wild Root Cream Oil Hair Tonic, the non-alcoholic hair tonic that contains lanolin. Wild Root Cream Oil. Again and again, the choice of men and women and children, too.
Sam Spade, Detective Agency.
Very important, sweetheart. Write this down.
Yes, Sam. I have pencil and paper ready.
Ingredients, :
Punctuation or ingredients, Sam?
both.
Well, what is it, Sam?
A recipe. 1 pound of fennel.
Oh, that's liquid measure, Sam.
You put that in later.
Cross out funnel?
Not funnel, fennel. It is not liquid. It grows in fairly pines.
It's fairly what, Sam?
1 root of St. John's wort.
Whose wart?
Not wart, wart.
Oh, wart.
Don't interrupt. Some newt size, a couple pounds ought to be enough. 1 ounce of bat's wool. 1 adder fork, that is not a utensil. 1 fillet of fenny snake. Some lizard's legs. 1 hemlock root digged in the dark. Directions. In the poisoned entrails throw toad that under cold stone days and nights hast 31. And if anyone drops in for trick-or-treat, Effie, leave 'em have it.
Oh, Sam, now I get it. Halloween. It's a witch's brew. You were only fooling.
That's what you think, sweetheart. Get out your cauldron, your poison pen, and your book of malefactions. I'll be right down to dictate my report on the fairly bright caper, or I should have stood in bed and ducked for apples.
Dashiell Hammett, America's leading detective fiction writer and creator of Sam Spade, the hard-boiled private eye, and William Spier, radio's outstanding producer-director of mystery and crime drama, join their talents to make your hair stand on end with the Adventures of Sam Spade. Presented by the makers of Wild Root Cream Oil for the hair. Are they saying this about you? There goes somebody who's really well-groomed. And that can go for every member of your family if they spruce up each day with Wild Root Cream Oil.
This Halloween episode featured Lurene Tuttle doubling as a witch, and Hollywood A-lister and wife of director Bill Spier, June Havoc, playing an uncredited lead.
June Havoc, who was Bill Spier's wife, occasionally played a part in Sam Spade so she could spend Sunday with her husband. That's an interesting point, by the way. There were many after people then who weren't surviving, and Lurene Tuttle made an impassioned plea with Bill Spier one time to have June come in and visit, but couldn't you give the part you give to her to someone who needs to work.
Hmm.
And that didn't please anybody too much.
Yeah, I imagine.
Oh!
Is that the wind dying? Oh, no, it's only two devils that blow through a murderer's bones to and fro in the ghost's moonshine.
Oh, Sam, take off that ridiculous mask. You look about as much like a demon
As a demon, check. Fly your broom into the adjoining office, sister, and we'll weave a few spells. Date, Effie.
Yes, Sam.
What is this thing on my desk? Looks like a pumpkin.
It is a pumpkin. I made it this afternoon. Here, I'll light it.
Well, isn't that cute?
Isn't that cute?
Eyes and nose and mouth. Looks like Lieutenant Dundee of Homicide.
Well, thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Well, I guess everyone knows it's Halloween, even if they don't listen to the radio. Shall we?
We shall.
Date, All Hallows Eve, 1948, to Hillary Bright, Esquire, number 13, Black Place, City. From Samuel Spade, license number 137596. Subject, the Fairly Bright Caper. It was a fairly bright afternoon for the fog-bound Bay Area. There was no frost upon the pumpkin. In fact, as yet, no pumpkin. But I did see a black cat and several attractive wolf girls in broomstick skirts during the bus ride down the peninsula to your client's ancestral estate, Fairley Pines. A bat flew out of a hollow tree as I mushed up a road through some pine woods to the house. In the gathering dusk, I also observed the toad, a lizard, and a hooty owl, which, if memory serves, are staple ingredients for a witch's brew. Then I observed, hobbling out of the forest, an authentic hag. She was wearing a dusty black robe, a peaked black hat, and her matted gray hair coiled serpent-like around her evil countenance. She leaned on a gnarled staff of hemlock, fixed me with her yellow, glittering eyes, and said,
Hello, kiddo.
Yes'm.
Which way's the house?
Which house?
Fairly Pines. Lost my bearings, I did. I was looking for some fennel.
Oh.
I got the bat's wool right enough and newt's legs. Couldn't find no adder's forks, but reckon this here copperhead will do the trick.
What are you going to do with all that stuff?
It's for the brew. I'm the witch I hired for tonight. Name's Gudge. Born Sophia, but of course I don't have no Christian name anymore since I sold out to Old Scratch. Beat me down on my price, he did, too. Look at that wart on my nose.
What nose?
Huh?
The house is up that way.
Mind if I walk along with you, pretty boy?
I don't like girls.
Huh?
No, not at all, ma'am.
No need to be afeared. With the scroungy fee they're paying me, they'll be lucky if I give them a whiff of brimstone.
Not so close, please.
But I did promise one manifestation and the scream of a soul in torment at the witching hour.
Yeah.
Fennel, fennel, aye, fennel. Ready or not, here I come.
I'll shoot. Who is that? What's your hurry, sir? Where do I find Mr. Hillary Bright?
Oh, you're the detective, Spade?
Right.
Oh, well, I'm Homer Langdon, attorney for the Fairley estate. Come along, I'll take you to him. Sorry for that challenge just now. Been hearing strange noises around the grounds. You notice anything peculiar as you came up the road?
Well, there was an old lady. I use the term loosely.
Looking for fennel?
Yeah.
That's the witch. Mr. Bright hired her for the party tonight.
Takes her work kind of seriously, doesn't she?
Well, you know how it is. Seasonal work.
What does she do between Halloweens?
Claims she hibernates. God, I feel you. Mrs. Fairley, Spade. She's eccentric. Don't let her know.
Check.
Oh, here I am, Homer. What was it you wanted? Oh, it's the man from the caterer.
No, Ophelia. This is Mr. Spade, the detective that Mr. Bright employed.
Oh, well, about that recipe for the aspic. Cook says she's never heard of putting fennel and lizard's claws in a tomato aspic. And Mr. Bright says hemlock is poison.
You've got it mixed up, Ophelia. That's the recipe for the witch's brew.
Well, anyway, the grocer says he doesn't stock them, so you'll have to garnish it with parsley.
Ophelia, he's not the caterer. He's the detective.
Oh! Well, keep your eye on those pumpkins. Mice, you know.
Mice?
You know, mice. Pumpkins? Where is that witch? I've got to tell her about the parsley. Oh, witch! Mrs. Witch! Where are you?
Sad case. case, but harmless. Shall we go in?
Yeah.
Now, watch his jawbone, Wilma. Oh, you've already broken his neck.
Oh, why don't you hire an assistant? I don't like hanging him in the house anyway. We don't even know who he is.
What are they up to now?
Halloween comes but once a year.
Oh, it's a skeleton, part of the decoration. Hillary,
Oh, yes, Homer.
I couldn't find the witch, but here's the detective.
Ah, well, you can have the witch. I'll take him.
Oh, watch what you're doing, Wilma. The ladder.
Sorry.
This just about completes the arrangements. Oh, this is Miss Wilma Fairley, for whom I'm managing this nauseous ball, Sam Spade.
Hillary. Is that any way to speak about a girl's 5th engagement party?
Forgive me if I'm guilty of understatement. Oh, fix that wire, Wilma. The top of Frankenstein's head's caving in. And look at that. The bolts are coming out of his neck already. Oh, well, come along, Spade. And I'll tell you how you fit into this mess.
See you at the party, Sam.
In here, Spade. Privacy.
I don't think we're quite alone, are we?
99%. This is Fairly Fiancé number 5, Ralph Cram by name. Oh, wake up, Ralph.
Oh, don't bother. He started the party a little early?
Before lunch. But can you blame him? If I weren't a teetotaler, I'd be out staggering around the woods with that witch.
Uh-huh. Now, what exactly is my assignment, Mr. Bright?
I want you to be present at this miserable party tonight and pretend to have a good time.
Why didn't you hire an actor?
This is a new kind of masquerade ball. Even I have a unique problem here. A Halloween party combined with a party announcing the engagement of a socially prominent young woman. Well, naturally, the press will be on hand. They always are at my parties. But I doubt if any of the invited guests will show up. That's where you come in. You're one of the uninvited guests.
I don't get it.
Well, it's very simply this. I have a reputation to maintain. I'm sure you have better things to do than read the society page, so I'll explain. I believe some ill-informed columnists have referred to me as the male Elsa Maxwell. That's not true. She is the male Hillary Bright. Female, that is.
Anyway, you're a professional party giver, is that it?
Exactly.
What's the matter with Wilma? Why won't anybody come to her party?
Because everyone on the guest list is either a relative or a friend of some poor swain she has jilted on the very steps of the altar.
Oh, now I get it.
Exactly. Now, as to the party. Masquerade. Natch. What else can you have on Halloween?
Figures.
Yes. If anyone came, they'd probably be dressed as witches or pumpkins, which is dull enough in itself.
Quite so.
But the Fairleys and their immediate circle will undoubtedly trot out their moth-eaten Beaux-Arts costumes. Old Langdon as Louis XIV. Wilma and her mother trying to look like Greek goddesses in some old drapes from a Fanchon and Marco idea.
What about the boyfriend here?
Well, you can see how hideous it's all going to be. And Life magazine has promised to cover it. Well, I simply had to do something.
What about the boy?
I think it's the party idea of the year. 20 uninvited guests who will come as themselves.
Who's my date, the witch?
Oh, isn't she priceless? You know, I thought of burning her at the stake as the grand climax of the evening.
I've got matches.
No, I decided against it. It's too messy.
Well, it sounds like loads of fun, Mr. Bright, but I'm afraid you called the wrong detective.
Now, wait a minute, please. Hear me out. Now, there's method in my madness. I believe I mentioned 20 uninvited guests.
Who are coming as themselves, yes.
Exactly. Well, I've gone to a great deal of trouble and expense getting together a really colorful group. All authentic types. A gangster, a shrimp fisherman, a swami, 3 bubble dancers, a gypsy, a paroled axe murderer, a sandhog. Oh, that reminds me, I must see whether the blubber arrived for that Eskimo they're flying down from Nome.
Yeah, well...
what I'm getting at, Spade, is that with a collection of people like that, well, anything might happen.
Yeah, well, why didn't you invite the local police force?
Oh, they're coming in costume, of course.
Good, then you won't need me. Besides, I get $800 a day in expenses.
Mr. Spade, at the last party our local chief of police attended, the guests were held up and robbed of $50,000 worth of jewels, including the chief's gold badge. So, you see, we do need you. Hey, what's that? Oh, go back to sleep, Ralph. It's only the guests arriving.
I get $1,000 a day. You were right. You did need a detective. In fact, you could have used several others. First, the pickpocket you'd invited lifted the police chief's wallet. The axe murderer chased the witch up a tree. And the gangster and the cowboy tried to shoot it out over one of the bubble dances. After I'd foiled a safecracker in the act of blowing the vault in the library, things quieted down, and everybody formed a circle around a bonfire.
All right, quiet, please. Quiet, everyone. Quiet.
I just love these.
Mrs. Fairley has a very important announcement to make. Ophelia,
She was here just a few moments ago.
Well, have you seen her around Langdon?
A few minutes ago, she said she had a headache and went upstairs to get some aspirin.
Sam, I'm worried about Mother. Would you mind going upstairs to see what she's up to? She's been behaving so strangely tonight.
She's been behaving strangely. Sure, Wilma. I'll be right
Well,
back.
come along, let's get on with it. A witch.
Urgent!
You stand over here.
Here?
No, bring your broom. That's it. And don't look so pleasant. You're supposed to be evil.
Beware! Those not wearing toad bane is subject to warts. There's evil in this place tonight. Blood on the stone, blood in the cauldron.
I hated to miss the manifestation, and I hoped I'd get back in time for the scream of the soul in torment the witch had promised earlier in the evening. I cased the rooms on the second floor. Wilma's fiancé, Ralph Cram, was in one of them, asleep. Ophelia wasn't in any of them. But in one of the bedrooms, I found something that puzzled me. A rope made out of bed sheets dangled out of the window, but the window was closed. I walked over and opened it. The witch was still at it. I couldn't see the merry little group around the bonfire, but where the firelight glowed against the tree trunks at the edge of the woods, I saw a white-robed figure crouching in the shadows. Then I heard it.
Heard them all in the house. On her hand. Don't let any of them get away.
Right, Chief!
All right, folks, you'll have to step inside. Come on, step inside.
No, you
It's Wilma, Spade. She's dead. Somebody shot her.
She was sprawled on her face at the foot of a big pine tree at the edge of the clearing. A single slug had entered her body just below her left shoulder blade. If this was part of Mr. Bright's Halloween production, I thought he'd overdone it just a little, because she was dead. As nearly as I could reconstruct it, Wilma had been standing outside the circle of people grouped around the fire, as if somebody in the woods had called to her and she'd left the group to investigate. She'd been facing the fire when she was shot. Then what about the two shots that had missed her? If the killer had been aiming at her and missed, he couldn't have avoided hitting somebody else in the crowd. I went back to the house to check the guests. All there, unwounded and accounted for, except the witch. According to the local chief of police, who was rapidly turning into a toad, she had flown away on her broom. I checked my nose for warts.
The makers of Wild Root Cream Oil are presenting the weekly Sunday adventure of Dashiell Hammett's famous private detective, Sam Spade.
I don't think anything of this kind had been done because we had a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff, and I used to do a little ad-libbing now and then if I felt like it, and it was kind of fun. In the final years, we used to rehearse. We were supposed to be there at 11:30 on a Sunday. I'd come in from Malibu. I was living in the colony then. And the first half hour, we were like a family, everybody. We all worked together. And mostly we had the same people on all the time. Johnny McIntyre and his wife, Jeanette Nolan, and Hans Conrad.
Bill Conrad was on.
Elliot Lewis, sure. Elliot Reed, Elliot's then wife, Kathy Lewis.
And June Havoc, we mustn't forget that she was on there, too.
I was going to mention June, and June and Kathy used to play a lot of the girls.
All of the various
most
parts.
of the leading ladies. And the first half hour was always we hadn't seen each other, so there's a lot of gags, and so that was devoted to sort of a social time. Then we eventually got around to reading the script, and then Bill and I would start to rewrite it, which was fun, too.
Your secretary?
We had kind of a contest between the two of them. No, I'd say, look, Bill, this is pretty good here. And he says, well, look, I've got it already written down, Bill.
That's what it's going to be.
So it was kind of a friendly camaraderie, rivalry, whatever, but I think we loved each other.
For a deeper look at the Adventures of Sam Spade, listen to Breaking Walls, episode 105.
Time now for Rocky Jordan.
It was a hot afternoon in Cairo when she walked into the Café Tamborine. She was beautiful, but there was something else. Something so wrong with the picture that I couldn't take my eyes off her. It wasn't the blonde hair piled on top of her head, or the dress that clung to her like a football player covering a fumble, nor even the set expression on her face. But when she stopped in front of me, I knew what it was. She was all woman, but not an inch under 6'4".
Again, we bring you a story of adventure with a man named Rocky Jordan, proprietor of the Café Tamborine in Cairo. Cairo, gateway to the ancient East, where modern life unfolds against the backdrop of antiquity. Tonight's story, The Bartered Bridegroom.
We've had a pretty fair assortment of customers in the Tamborine. Almost anything on feet. But when I looked up into that icy-faced 6'4" of blonde female, I knew we had our first Amazon.
You're ready, Mr. Jordan?
Ready?
You're wasting time, Jordan.
I didn't catch the name.
Lily Caroff. You're being rude.
The face is familiar. Maybe we met in Istanbul.
No, Jordan.
Alexandria, maybe?
The arrangements are made. You're stalling.
Look, suppose we take it from the top of the page, Miss Caroff.
Naturally, you're interested in the money. This, too, has been taken care of. Now about the ceremony.
Ceremony?
The wedding. Be there in an hour.
Oh, sure. I'll be there in plenty of time. I'm a great believer in weddings. Oh, by the way, who's getting married?
I am, Mr. Jordan. To you.
Maybe we'd better go into my office.
That will not be necessary. Timmy Rogers has made all the arrangements.
Timmy Rogers? Now I know we'd better go into the office. She sat across the desk from me and lit a king-sized cigarette. The hand that held the match wore a queen-sized diamond. It sent a reflection against the wall. I didn't like the way the reflection quivered. Her face was under control, but her hands gave her away. She was a nervous bride.
Timmy should have explained these details.
If I know Timmy Rogers, he doesn't bother with details.
That's unfortunate. Nevertheless, in 1 hour, you and I shall be married. You will receive $5,000. Is that clear?
Oh, very.
It is not enough money?
Oh, that's not entirely it, Miss Caroff. Having never been married before.
You're being rude again. I plan to leave Cairo immediately after the ceremony.
Really? Tell me, Miss Caroff, where are we going on our honeymoon?
Enough, Jordan. I will not be insulted further. You will receive the $5,000 as soon as I have sold my interest in the Club Fashad.
Fashad? Oh, yeah. Now I remember you and Mike Sloan bought that together recently.
Yes, but I am selling my interest.
What's the matter? Business falling off?
No, not business. You see, I'm a White Russian. Certain of my friends have been disappearing lately. I do not wish the same thing to happen to me.
I see.
But this is not what I came to talk about. Now, the wedding...
Look, Lily, I've got news for you. I'm not in the mood for marriage.
Your moods do not interest me, Jordan. You are going to marry me.
Well, I'll admit you're more persuasive with a gun.
You will not refuse me.
Maybe it didn't occur to you, Lil, but you can't marry a dead man. Come on, put the gun away.
There are many other ways to make certain you do not back out. Jordan, be at my club in 1 hour. It means your life.
She moved out of the office as silently as an Arab folding his tent. I followed her out in time to see her climb into a black sedan 2 feet shorter than the Queen Mary. It faded off into the crowded street. I stood there trying to figure out where I could rent a tux cheap when a hand thumped against my back. I turned to see a watered-down version of Tyrone Power, all of 5'5" in his elevated shoes. It was none other than the little fixer himself, Timmy Rogers.
Rocky, old kid, I just saw her leaving. Congratulations, kid.
This makes my day complete.
I'm so happy for you, kid. You'll make a lovely bridegroom.
Slow down, kid. You're drooling on my wedding suit.
What a woman. You're a picker, Jordan, if I ever saw one.
Aren't you forgetting one little item? You picked her, not me.
A mere formality. Greatest girl this side of Minsk.
Well, at least the biggest.
But, Rock, kid, for $2,000, how can you miss?
It's even less interesting for $2,000.
Huh? How's that, Rock?
Lily offered me $5,000.
Well, what do you know? She really must be scared.
Okay, suppose you give me the straight story.
Well, Rock, well, I'll tell you.
Still listening?
Well, look, why don't you and I go into the bar for a drink, Rock, and I'll tell you all about it.
I followed the little man into the bar. We pulled up on a couple of empty stools by the open front door. Timmy Rogers rubbed his hands, licked his lips, and ordered a double orange blossom.
Orange blossom for a wedding day, huh, Rock? Now, where was I?
You and Lily Cairo, remember?
Yeah. Well, Sir Rock, it's like this. Lil has a few roulette wheels out in the back room of her joint, as you know. The other night, I ran into as tough a streak of luck as has been seen in Cairo since Happy Harper was picked up for trying to sell some tourists the Sphinx.
How much?
How much? How much? Well, I dropped $5,000, which it just so happens I couldn't cover at the bank.
Mm-hmm. So then came Lily.
Yeah. Lily made me a proposition. She'll forget the $5,000 if I marry her.
Sure.
But it turns out she's looking for an American. She wants a ticket to the USA.
Oh, that pitch, huh?
Well, can't say that I blame her, Rock. Things can get pretty rough around Cairo for the wrong...
Hey, hold it.
Huh?
That guy's been staring at me too long. Standing there in the open doorway was a brown suit full of balloon-shaped Egyptian. His eyes didn't leave my face as he hooked his cane over one arm and smoothed his white gloves with his hand.
At 8:30 p.m. Pacific time from KNX's Hollywood studios, Rocky Jordan re-debuted on CBS. It was a revival of A Man Named Jordan.
You are Mr. Rocky Jordan?
Yeah.
It aired over CBS's West Coast network and starred Hollywood character actor Jack Moyles.
What's on your mind?
Jordan's code of ethics was rooted in practicality. He was strongly motivated by money, and his search for fortune was often wrapped up in dangerous adventure.
Indeed I am not.
The main change from A Man Named Jordan was the moving of Rocky's Café Tamborine from Istanbul to Cairo.
$10,000 if you do not go through with this wedding.
10? Huh. It's the best offer I've had all day.
In cash, Mr. Jordan.
If it makes you feel any better, Pasha, you can forget... I hit the floor fast. Over my head, the big mirror behind the bar shattered and rained glass.
Writers Larry Roman and Cornell Cool strove for authenticity and flavor. The cafe was given no street or number, but the surrounding Cairo streets were real. Most of the info came from the Army's pocket guide to Egypt. Roman and Cool were also aided at one point by Egyptian writer Andrew Bitar. Ideas came from troop tales and newspapers. Jordan usually got involved by happenstance. This brought him into contact with Captain Sam Spade of the Cairo Police, voiced by Jay Novello. Original music was by Richard Orant, and Larry Thor handled announcing.
Rocky Jordan is presented from Columbia Square in Hollywood and stars Jack Moyles in the title role. Tonight's story was written by Gomer Cool and William Frug, produced and directed by Cliff Howell, with original music by Milton Charles. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
I used to do a roundup, and we'd call in 8 or 10 capitals of the world. We were beginning to have a staff in each of the great cities, full-time, not stringers. Now, I got word just before I went on that we would go Paris first and then London. So I introduced Paris, and Paris was on. As I was sitting there and my head was down, musing and listening to what was coming from Paris, while with the other ear I was listening to London, upcoming London, I heard a voice say, "Look up, Ben." And there was the director of the program in behind the glass booth with a piece of paper written on it, Spain, and signaling me, not London, Spain, Spain. When we finished the show, I suddenly said, "Oh, who said look up, Ben? What was all that?" He said, with 30 seconds to go, London coming, RCA said they now have the Madrid circuit, and I wanted to get it fast before we lose it. I rapped in the glass, and you didn't respond. You couldn't hear me. I thought maybe you're plugged into London, so I said, "Hey, Fred Bate, I think Ben is plugged into you. Tell him to look up." So Jack's voice went out to London 3,000 miles. Bates said, "Hey, look up, Ben," came back to me 3,000 miles, and I looked up 6 feet into the director's eye.
The only non-NBC time slot winner on Sunday nights was ABC at 9 p.m. with Walter Winchell's Juergen's Journal and its 15.4 rating. The news show helped him become the most powerful reporter in the country. In a 1948 Collier's Magazine article, Winchell declared himself a protector of the little people. Winchell was clocked at 215 words per minute.
Mr. Winston Churchill, however, and Lord Rothermere, the British publisher, are not that optimistic. British preparation for war continues on emergency basis. The Washington ticker. As of tonight, Democratic leaders privately give Mr. Truman only 2 states north of the Ohio. Their confidential polls also indicate that Governor Dewey is leading by at least 10 million. The campaign headquarters. This is the irony of politics. Chester Bowles, fired for urging price ceilings, which Mr. Truman now wants back, is running 50,000 ahead of the president in the Connecticut polls. Selective service. Only 1 out of each 38 draft registrants is likely to be inducted. The Pentagon. The big scotch and soda talk in Washington tonight is that Defense Secretary James Forrestal is slated for the presidency of the Texas Oil Company if the Republicans win. Mr. and Mrs. United States, this is to respectfully disagree with the President of the United States. The current spy investigation is not a red herring. Our top intelligence chiefs believe that it is a great menace, and surely their files are open to the White House. A story never made public before, but which the best newspaper people in Washington, D.C. believe is this. About a year ago, the President was on the verge of elevating a man to one of the most important international positions in the world. Our intelligence department, learning of it, rushed over to the White House at midnight and confronted the President of the United States with a report on this man. As a result, Mr. President canceled this important elevation. The person involved was recently investigated by Congress. Evidence at midnight in the White House is still evidence before Congress. The truth is that the deepest secrets of our government, shared not even by the American people, were an open book in Moscow. As far back as October the 12th, 1947, over these microphones, I revealed some of the facts sworn to under oath last Friday by James B. Carey, the Treasurer Secretary of the CIO, that the Red Fifth Column was using the very same secret weapons the Bund and the Nazis used. That is, our great Constitution, plus some of our dirtiest politicians. And that, with the help of some American labor leaders, the Russians had already captured control of these American unions. Mr. Carey testified on Friday that the United Electrical Workers Union, which he once headed, quotes, was a communist front on many questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I tried to warn you about that and similar communist-dominated unions to the limit of the law. But our federal courts have ruled that it is libel or slander to call anyone a communist. As a result, the blindfold of justice has been twisted into a gag for the press. A reporter's report to the nation, Washington. The Saturday Evening Post recently published an article by Kermit Roosevelt which treated the notorious Grand Mufti with kid gloves. This article in the Saturday Evening Post practically cleaned him up. The Mufti, it said in effect, isn't the criminal I say he is. Well, our government is now in possession of a diary kept by the late von Ribbentrop, Hitler's foreign minister. It reveals that von Ribbentrop personally paid the Grand Mufti 80,000 marks every month. This document is now in the War Crimes File, number NG5461. NG, meaning nicht gut. The Defense Department. One of the biggest boners in all American history was recently discovered just in time. Our newest and our biggest bombers, the B-50s and the B-36s, were built, get this, were built without provision to carry atomic bombs. In short, while we were getting very tough with Russia, the United States had only 3 atomic B-29s, the very same planes that ended the war in Japan. How do you like that? Washington, in answer to the Moscow charge that the United States detained Mrs. Kasankina, another diplomatic bombshell is about to explode. The United States will retaliate by charging that FDR's personal representative, Raoul Wallenberg, was kidnapped in 1945 by Russian agents in Hungary, and he hasn't been heard of since. Attention all strike leaders. This is to remind all who strike that conditions aren't so bad in our capitalistic United States because the socialist government of Great Britain threatened to break the British transportation strike with the Royal Navy, and in communist Russia, all strikes are stopped at once by the firing squad. Think that over. Knoxville, Tennessee. A few years ago, at the bitterest point of our disagreement, I defended Senator Burton K. Wheeler's right of free speech after hoodlums in the West threw eggs at him. I disagree with Henry Wallace as much as I disagreed with ex-Senator Wheeler, but I believe in his right and mine of free speech. It is both un-American and unnecessary.
At this time, I was doing the Winchell program, which started, I believe, in 1932, and I was with the Winchell for 16 years. And I would say that of all the programs that current at that time, that, with certain ups and downs, was the leading broadcast. At the height of its popularity, 9 o'clock Sunday night was an absolute ritual for people. They'd stop their bridge, they'd get home from visiting other people. You had to hear that 15 minutes. Heads fell, reputations rolled, stocks declined, potentates trembled. Winchell's power was so great when he was at his peak.
But Vitone-enriched Jergens face cream will.
Although both Jergens and Ben Grauer had been associated with Winchell's radio program since 1932, he would change sponsors and announcers in the new year.
Skin smoother, called finer than lanolin itself. What's more, you get a complete facial in one jar of Jergens face cream. All-purpose Jergens face cream is a cleanser, a softener, a dry skin cream, and a powder base. Yet Jergens face cream enriched with precious Vitone costs no more than ordinary creams. 15 cents to $1.25 a jar plus tax. So get your jar of Jergens face cream today and start having the kind of skin women envy and men love. Next week, another edition of the Jergens Journal with Walter Winchell. And now be sure to remain tuned for Luella Parsons' 15-minute program featuring as guest Gary Cooper, which follows immediately. This is Ben Grauer speaking.
How did Our Miss Brooks come along?
Well, they had made a couple of recordings with a couple of other actresses. I believe Joan Blondell was one. And they didn't feel she was right, and Shirley Booth was one. So they asked me to do it, and I held very little hope for it. But they said, we'd like to put it on as a summer replacement. And I said, well, then you're going to have to do it right fast, because I'm going to New York. So we taped all of them very fast. And I got to New York, and at the end of my stay there, Frank Stanton said, congratulations. He was the president of CBS. And I said, what for? And he said, you're the #1 show on the air, which astounded me. So then we went into fall production.
Now we'll just tap this water pipe here.
Oh, be careful, Mr. Conklin.
Please, Miss Brooks. I know motors backwards. One more good tap should do it.
That did it all right. Well, let's get out and push, folks. We're off to the nearest garage.
At 9:30 p.m., Eve Arden took to the air an Our Miss Brooks from KNX in Los Angeles. The show debuted during the summer, and by September, they'd found sponsorship with Palmolive.
What? Why, how did?
On Halloween, Connie Brooks took a trip to the Clay City football game, hoping for some alone time with Philip Boynton on the car ride over. She wasn't so lucky.
He's my principal. Oh, now calm down, Mr. Conklin. Remember, everything's all right now. We're off to Clay City.
Where do you figure we are now, Miss Brooks?
Well, I think
according to my calculations, we've been traveling due east on Route 94 for 1 hour and 10 minutes at an approximate mean speed of 40 miles per hour.
Any tailwind, Mr. Conklin?
Oh, look, we're coming into a town. Of course we're coming to a town. Just as I figured. This is it. Miss Brooks, ask that pedestrian where the stadium is.
What pedestrian?
Hey, look where you're driving!
Oh, that pedestrian. Pardon me, could you tell us where the Clay City Stadium is?
Well, I can't be positive, but my guess would be Clay City.
Isn't this Clay City?
No, this is Boonville. If you'd be kind enough to give me a lift home, though, I could show you where Clay City is. I live just a few miles from there in Flagton.
Well, there really isn't much room. We've got 3 in front and 3 in back now.
Well, it's not much of a ride from here. Perhaps I could sit on this gentleman's lap.
What? Sit on my lap?
Oh, better take him, dear. We've only got a short time if we want to see the kickoff.
Oh, very well. Come on.
I hope I'm not too heavy. Sorry, I'll change my position.
Start the car, Miss Brooks.
All right, Mr. Conklin. And this time we're really off to Clay City.
Thanks a lot for the lift.
You're welcome. Now, how do we get to Clay City from here?
Oh, that's 29 miles back down the road. We passed through it on the way.
What? Why, you...
Yes, so long.
You... 29 miles back? Why, that... We could have been... He said that it was only...
Daddy, remember your blood pressure. His ears get awful red, don't they?
Now, see here, everybody. We've got to organize this expedition. There's been no unity of command, that's the trouble. Everybody's talking at once. Oh. Shut that toad up, Boynton.
He's not a toad, Mr. Conklin. MacDougal's a frog.
A giant bullfrog with tonsils.
Quiet, Miss Brooks. Now turn this car around and go that way, and don't stop going that way until I tell you to.
Off to Clay City.
Well, this is Clay City, all right. There's the Clay City National Bank, Clay City Lumberyard. Now, for heaven's sake, Miss Brooks, before you get lost again, ask somebody where the stadium is.
All right, Mr. Conklin. Oh, there's a bus parked over there. I'll ask the driver. Excuse me, but could you tell me where the Clay City Stadium is?
Sure, it's 4 blocks left and 3 right.
Oh, thanks a lot. That's the first definite answer I've had all day.
Well, I ought to know where the stadium is. I got the Clay City team in this bus. We just beat Madison High 89-0.
89-0? May I ask you one more question?
Sure, what is it?
Did they put up a good fight?
This episode had a rating of 13.5.
Eve Arden as our Miss Brooks returns in just a moment. But first, dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl. Tonight, show him how...
For a deeper look at our Miss Brooks, listen to Breaking Walls, episode 106.
Only Luster Cream brings you K. Dumont's magic formula blend of secret ingredients plus...